The Slut Walk is an international movement that calls for the end of rape culture. It famously involves a march in which women dress in scantily clad clothing as a demonstration against using a woman's appearance to excuse men assaulting them. The movement also aims to take back the word slut so it can no longer be used as an insult. Is this movement, and other efforts like it, helpful? Is the ultimate goal of desexualizing women's bodies one that can be achieved? Would these efforts be better placed elsewhere? And is taking back the word slut a desirable or even likely outcome? Yeah, so I'm sure you've all, well, most of you have heard the Slut Walk, or maybe you've seen images of it, right? And people wearing like it's not just like regular scanty clothing, like almost like a Halloween kind of costume type thing they're going for, but just to prove a point, get it out there, that just because their bodies are maybe less than covered doesn't excuse anyone else's behavior, which I think is a valiant point. But there's been a lot of people, a lot of like think pieces about whether this is the way to go about doing this, and especially this word slut, and other words like that, you know, like bitch, right? Taking back those words. Like, what does that mean? Should that be done? Does it actually net us anything? All right, so I'm curious about all your opinions on this. Opening statements, smash.
Yeah, so the problem I have with like the slut walks is that it focuses on how men see women rather than women addressing the actual problems. I personally don't want to be called a slut, nor do I want to give men an opportunity, more of an opportunity to objectify my body. I want to be supportive to women, and I think generally we should be, but I'm not sure this is the way we should tackle things like rape by normalizing objectification.
Thank you, thank you. Joe. Any second now. She's Joe is an amazing
She's
streamer. I
mute.
want you to know that, right? The best of the streamers. And so she's always on top of this. Joe.
Yeah, I say my best things when you can't hear me. I I agree with what Amanda says. Pretty much wholesale. I've never, even when I'm like joking and saying slut, like I honestly hear slut, whether it comes from men or women, more as a way to put someone down and to delegitimize their position in society. I don't think it's a word worth reclaiming, to be honest. I also think, once again, this adds to this myth that like the night isn't safe and being out on the street is like where you're going to get attacked by some random stranger who's going to come at you because you're wearing a tiny dress. And it's like, no, like if you're hanging out in slacky dacks at home and you are in an abusive relationship, then you're just as much at risk there. So I think it puts too much emphasis on clothing and location. Of course, I understand why this myth needed to be undercut, because yes, it is used a lot, but it's used a lot more generally, right? So like women's sexuality is used against them in courts of law, because historically, if you look at the law, a woman's honor, a woman's word was based on her chastity. So a sexually active woman was found to be less credible and could have her testimony thrown out of the court, whereas the same obviously was not true for men. So I would say that there's something to do with the sexualization of women and the extent to which their sexuality is used to undermine claims of assault. But I think the slut walk and this idea that like we're all sluts now and that's great and that's our right sort of reduces women who exist in multitudes and express themselves in very different way, and prioritizes women's sexual expression over their sexual desire and conflates the two. I can look however I want. That doesn't mean that I want anything. And I think pushing this idea of like, I have the right to dress like a slut and you can't rape me sort of completely distracts from the major issue at hand when it comes to sexual assault.
Anna.
Yeah, I pretty much agreed with everything Joe said. Crap, I was gonna make a point, but now I forgot it. Oh my god, cognitive decline. Getting older sucks. Oh my god.
I can come back to you later on.
Okay, I can't remember now.
No worries. Zonia.
Yeah, I gotta concur with Anna. Agree. I think that the slut walk, I understand the intent of it, but it does seem like a little bit of a ridiculous LARP that is not really helping and isn't really achieving the thing that it's intending to achieve. Obviously, there is a problem with feminine bodies being seen as being sexual at all times. For instance, like nipples blurred, right? Yeah, women's nipples are blurred, but men's are not here in the U.S. at least. And I think it's really evident that uh, there is a culture of looking at women as sexual objects. This slut walk not really solving that problem, really kind of just playing into the trope and kind of ridiculous. Um, I hope it's fun though. If they're having fun doing that, then I'm all for it. Have fun. But yeah, it's not really accomplishing the goal. So that's my position on it.
Sonia, I think it's pretty obvious that my nipples are family friendly. All right, I don't know what you understand about that. Let's go to Missy.
The only reason I've been trying not to laugh is because Joe says slacky dax, and I have no idea what that is. What does that mean?
Track
I'm
pants.
sorry. What does that mean? And people keep saying in the chat. You can come back to me. You can come back to me.
Track pants,
Oh.
like track pants.
Okay.
I've never heard that word.
Sweatpants.
Slacky dax. Wow.
I love it.
Oh boy. It's because the water spins the other way around down there. Makes them go crazy. All right, let's go to Toasty.
I kind of see the issue in like 2 points. Like, for one, I think some efforts could be made to like desexualize like clothing that women wear, like to take the blame off of rape victims and stuff like that. More likely through education, because like I'm sure the people that make those claims, it's myths spread around. If you looked at like actual data, anywhere from 80 to 90% of rapes are all done by people that the women knew. Most rapes are like in sexual assaults are done before that they're even 18. So are you saying like that a child was wearing something that caused them to get raped? Like, what's wrong with you? But I don't think we'd be able to like, I just don't see it happening that we could ever like completely destigmatize the word slut, especially since like there are like actual like ramifications of being promiscuous that like potential, at least it's it's likely if you sleep around with enough people. Condoms are not 100% protective. You could get HPV, you could still get syphilis, you could get herpes. HPV is responsible for 9 out of 10 like times you get women get cervical cancer. Things like that, they get spread around through those means, even if you have protection. So with those consequences, I don't think you could ever truly get rid of all the stigma around the word.
Okay, Vint.
Ooh, I am not as educated on this as I probably should be, ladies. I'm not going to lie to you. I know that it started in 2011 in Canada. How exciting. It was in Chicago, New York, New Brunswick. I did read that one. That's pretty great. I liked what they did in India. I think it was far more, what the joy of living in a first world country. Am I right? The joy of being a melting pot, the joy of being able to do whatever the hell you want, whenever the hell you want to do it. But I feel like it had a bit more of an impact in places like India and Southeast Asia, where women were getting violently raped in the streets just because their sari showed a little bit too much tummy. You know what I mean? Let's face it. In America, we accept you're hungry, you're tired, you're weak, and you're poor. My big issue with the slut walk was they started denying people of certain religious groups and their icons, including Jewish people and Muslim women, in their walks. In fact, they didn't even want to represent them because they had an issue with what was going on in Israel. Now, I don't know if any of you guys know anyone that's from a religion that could be considered a little bit more oppressive, but not all Jews are the same. All right. The same way not all Christians are the same. And they basically told everyone in, I think it was 2016, you can't be a part of this walk if you're Israeli and you want to wear Israeli iconography. And I can link that for you guys. And that's kind of where, like, it's like, okay. And then in 2016, they were like, oh, now our leader is Amber Rose. And it became like a celebrity thing where it's like, let's all do what Amber Rose is doing. And the wheels kind of started falling off on it. It's now more of a celebrity campaign to prove how woke you are. It's not really about the real issues.
Hey, Stardust.
I definitely get the point of it, right? Like if you look at it and kind of abstract in an abstract kind of way, right? It's we shouldn't be what somebody wears shouldn't even be in the equation when somebody gets raped, right? Or somebody gets assaulted. Because at the end of the day, it really doesn't matter what you wear. It doesn't matter how you act. If somebody wants to power you, they're going to overpower you. If somebody treats you like an animal, they view you like an animal, they're going to treat you like an animal, and it doesn't matter what you're wearing. And I think that while that message may have been the starting message with the slut walk, I think that it was kind of forgotten as like it was kind of forgotten. It kind of became like we should be able to it just felt like it was more of like a sexual liberation kind of thing, right? Which is fine. Women should be caring about the type of sex that they have, being allowed to have the type of sex that they want, being able to have pleasurable sex, right? But it's not really related anymore to the issue at hand. It's not related to the original idea behind it. And I think yes, we should have sexual liberation 100%, but we also have to we should also advocate for safety, right? Because while somebody can be liberated, that somebody can still engage in unsafe behavior and behavior that puts them at risk, right? And putting yourself in vulnerable positions, I don't want to set up I'm not blaming anybody, right? I don't want to blame anybody, right? But the reality of the situation is we live in the world that we live in, right? We live in a world where if you put yourself in a vulnerable situation, there are a lot of people who will take advantage of you or who will manipulate you. So, yeah, it's very complicated.
Well, the
So.
slut walk doesn't have an actual agenda. That's the crazy thing, is it changes, I swear to God, every 3 months.
I love
But
how
this
you
is
said that you didn't know what this slut
No,
slut walk
I
is.
don't I
And
looked
then
into
no,
it,
no,
and
no,
every
no, no.
3 months it's like
You
But
started
this is the
quoting a whole
problem.
bunch of things, and you even brought up Amber Rose, which I don't even think a lot of people were necessarily familiar with.
oh, yeah, I
But
don't consider myself very educated on the topic, but I know that stuff.
But
really,
this is kind of the point that I want to make about the slut walk, because I actually think there are, the question about whether or not what you're wearing equates to consent is a meaningful question, and one that deserves political action, and one that deserves to be discounted. But unfortunately, we do live in a time where political activism is like very much part of the brand, and the opportunity to get dressed up like a total slut with my girls and march the streets tonight has become sort of what the activity represents to me, more so than any concrete political message or demand. And more than that, my issue with it is that it obfuscates the real threat of sexual violence for women in terms of what counts as consent. And like what I don't think that a bunch of women dressing up in their skankiest outfits and roaming the streets at night makes it clear what they're trying to say. I don't understand that at all. And I don't think that it makes it clear that women are most likely to be harmed in their home. That's where they are the least safe. I don't think it makes any issue about consent particularly clear. I don't think it makes any issue about objectification particularly clear. And I have the same arguments against other things. I have the same arguments against widespread participation in BLM marches and the Women's March. Like when I went to the BLM march in my country, there were thousands of people there. But when I went to protest the murder of an Australian Indigenous man by the police, there were 15 people there before George Floyd was murdered. So I think there is this sort of protest tourism that we see, where people are more interested in using it to elevate their brand and having a fun activity to do with the girls than actually changing our understanding of sexual assault and consent.
Well, we'll go to Zonia and Missy, but I think this is going to be actually really interesting. I'm actually quite excited now. Zonia and Missy.
Yeah, so even though I agree with a lot of what you said, Joe, I think there still needs to be some attention drawn to, even though the slut walk doesn't do a good job of this, but drawing attention to the objectification of feminine bodies. Because if you recall earlier this year, there was a Twitch streamer who was suspended temporarily for showing too much leg. and and she's just wearing. If I recall correctly, I think she was wearing like short shorts or something like that, and she got suspended for showing too much leg, and then there was a big backlash. Twitch staff had to kind of overcompensate for it and started applying the rule to, because people were showing, hey, look at all these male streamers who are showing like all the time, and they're not getting
Yeah.
suspended. And so they kind of had to overcompensate and say, okay, well, now you can't do these kinds of things. So they overcompensated for a little while before they finally kind of rolled it back and were a little bit more, less conservative about these things. But that shows you there's even with something like Twitch, which has a very progressive, streamer base and viewer base, you have this problem just manifesting where there's a double standard, and it's clear that if the rules themselves said that female streamers couldn't, feminine bodies can't show skin, we're going to suspend them, right? I'm not even sure if they were official rules, but that's how they acted on it.
Zonia, I have a question about that because I totally agree. And I've said multiple times on this platform, like, I think just existing, I get sexualized like all the time. I don't even have to show leg or boob or anything. Literally just appearing on screen, someone will make a sexual comment. So I 100% agree with that double standard. I agree that it needs to be addressed. All I'm saying is I'm not sure if like getting dressed up in the most sexually appealing outfit and walking around calling yourself a slut is the way to counter that.
Also, like going back to like the first world country thing, like we are accepting so many people that come from such a drastically more conservative background that it could be quite a culture shock to see something like that and be like, oh my God, I can't believe this is even happening. These women are in their underwear, even though it's just short shorts and a bikini top. We have some blinders on living in a first world country, not even noticing what other countries, how conservative they actually are.
Missy.
Honestly, I think the slut walk is disappointing because I wish that we could bring up women's issues and talk about our objectification without using our literal sexualization to garner attention. Because let's be honest, if we're just using our brain, what is the actual most effective way to start getting men to treat us with respect? Is it to normalize how they want us to look? Or is it to just stop giving them what they wanted? I mean, let's say that women just started completely covering up. Let's say we had a modesty walk until men started treating us properly. I feel like that would work pretty effectively compared to what we're doing right now, which is trying to reclaim a word that we shouldn't even want in the first place because it's derogatory. I mean, slut no longer means anything, right? What's the point of that? We instead could just teach men that it's not a word that you should be using because women aren't sluts for the way they dress. That's it.
So, oh man, okay. I have disagreements with one side of the screen. Anna, I see your hand up. And Advent, okay. I just
No, I was just rolling my hand. I was just kind of giggling to myself, thinking of like what would define us as sluts, like some kind of Dragon Ball Z move where we're like just sucking cocks, rolling down the street in some quick motion. Like, how do you define what that is? Even it's definitely not a pair of short shorts.
So, okay, Stardust. I'm a little confused as to like your opening statement there. You were talking about how, like reality is reality, but isn't reality something we should be changing? Right? Yes, true. The reality is that people might take advantage of you if they perceive some sort of signal. Missy, don't worry, I'll get to you. You're on the list. But if they perceive some sort of signal, and so yes, they can strike.
If I can
but
elaborate further.
Okay, go ahead.
Oh, yeah. So I agree that I think we should strive for a world that's different, right? I think we should 100% strive for that. I think we should advocate for it. But I don't think that we should tell women that that the reality is that's what we live in, right? Because you are setting people up to be taken advantage of, right? We don't live in a reality. We want to change the reality, but we don't live in it yet. And I can say to a woman, yes, you should be able to walk around naked and not be sexualized, but still the reality is that she will be.
But okay, you all know better than I, right? Like you all have gotten this advice since we were little girls about exactly how you should dress on all of these things, right? Like women already have that message, right? Like this, the whole point of this demonstration is to say that that's wrong, right? And like we should come to a better world. And you know, even if you're naked, you can walk down the street. Like I don't think this protest like reverse engineers any of that, right? Because I mean,
I would disagree with you.
Okay.
I would disagree with you because the act itself is right. We're going around dressed like this, and we should be able to do this. Which is yes, that is the message. I agree with that. Like I don't think you should have to be. You know, I don't think you should be forced into anything based on what you wear. But you can't take that and apply it in the real world, right? You can only apply it in that situation.
So I'm confused though. Are you saying, Missy? Don't worry, I'm gonna get to you. You're on the list. I'm coming after you too. But Missy, and then Anna and Zonia. I got your hands. I'll put you on the list too. So you're saying. I mean, like. I don't know how that doesn't just reinforce the bad message. So the reason the slut walk started, at least according to what I've read, was because an officer in Toronto or somewhere in Canada, doesn't matter where, it's all the same, mooses everywhere, said that women should stop dressing like sluts, right? If you're saying that this protest, where they specifically like defy that, is a problem because you know reality is the same. Like it sounds like you were saying that same message in a nicer, like less disrespectful tone. It's like yeah, sure, but like you know, still don't dress that way.
Not quite. So I disagree with what the officer said, right? Because if you get raped, you're getting raped no matter what you wear, right?
Okay.
But I think that there is a lot of there's a lot of messaging, right, where it that I see being spread in these circles where it's like, yeah, it's totally fine. You can totally do that. There's no risks to you. You're like there's no risk to you, right? And there's nothing wrong with that, right? And I don't feel okay with telling girls who haven't even experienced that kind of violation, who are still innocent, who are still relatively sheltered, telling them that yeah, it's totally fine. You're going to be totally fine. You can just, you can act however you want. You can do whatever you want, and you aren't going to be putting yourself in a vulnerable situation, right? You won't be taken advantage of because you will. You will.
It's irresponsible. It's irresponsible.
The protest isn't saying that, though. The protest
no,
isn't
but
saying...
no,
it kind of is, though.
Prime, this is the issue,
Okay.
right? I 100% get what Stardust is saying here, right? So ultimately, you're talking about the overall message of what the protest is trying to combat.
Okay.
And what we're telling you is that a bunch of women getting dressed up in their, like, I have skanky outfits, the skankiest outfits, pushing their boobs up, getting their legs out, looking hot, like just undeniably fucking amazing. That's how these girls are getting dressed up. Then they're going out and they're saying, yeah, I'm a slut, I'm such a fucking slut, whatever. Like, that's not a problem with that. And they're doing it under the guise that walking in that group for that march, they will be safe. And that sends a message to the young women participating in that march that being a slut doesn't come with any risk. Being perceived as a slut doesn't come with any risks. And unfortunately, as much as you want societal change, right? And I agree, this is called, like when we're engineering things socially, we want a different future to the future that we have right now. And the reality we have right now is that in the same way that like I sit on stream, I try to never wear low cut tops. I try to never stand up on screen because I don't want to put myself in the situation where I am sexualized more than I have to be, right? And that's just the reality. I don't want that attention. So I don't do anything to provoke it. And I should be able to sit on this screen and wear whatever the fuck I want and not get attention that I don't want. But ultimately, that is not the case. If I wear certain things, I'm going to get certain attention. And what we don't want to do is send a message to young women that you can wear whatever you want and there'll be absolutely no risk to you. Because maybe it's not so much, oh, if you wear this, you'll get raped and it'll be okay, right? Because that's not what anyone is trying to say. What Stardust is trying to say is, if you go out in a skirt that's really super short and your boobs are out, there is a chance someone's going to stick their hand up your skirt. You're at a higher risk for that happening. It's just going to happen. Someone's going to grab your boobs because they're there. You're at a higher risk. They shouldn't do it, but you are putting yourself at a
Nobody
high
tells
risk.
you that. Yeah, and if nobody
Exactly.
tells you that, that is a traumatizing experience. If you're 14 and you're walking outside and you think that you're going to be okay, or 15 wearing this, really short skirt, and you're wearing like a low cut top, and you think that you're going to be okay, and then somebody does that to you, it's a traumatizing experience, and nobody should leave that person to find that out. Right? Somebody should, I feel like you shouldn't leave that person or tell them that that's going to be okay, that you're going to be fine.
But no, but again, all right, I won't belabor this point because I guess we just have a different opinion here. But again, literally,
I mean, listen, it's not the Victorian era, right? Like, gentlemen aren't walking down the street to hold open the door for you. The same way, like I said, going back to we live in a first world country. We accept people from all over the world. We accept all of their beliefs, all of their ideas. Not everyone is raised in this beautiful society where, like, ooh, a woman, what a beautiful, polite creature.
But no, so I'm not going to belabor this point, but like it seems like women get those messages all the time, right? Like I go to college and I hear those I hear those messages as well. Women don't leave your drink unattended, right? Like walk around in groups. You all know the whole list better than I do. So like to say that, sorry, this is gone, but to say that someone should tell. Oh, you can hear, great. So that someone should tell these girls about these things. They have. Their mothers are telling them. Their aunts are telling them.
It's
their
complicated.
Schools are telling them.
But Prime, it's not that simple because you also have Cardi B and Doja and everyone saying WAP, and I'm all for it, right? I'm all for it. But this is what I talk about when I talk about the importance of distinguishing sexual expression from sexual desire. This idea that, oh, I'm liberated. I can dress however I want now. I can be as sexy as I want because I'm a liberated woman. You are not liberated so long as your desire is not recognized as legitimate. And that means both a desire that you have for someone else and a desire not to be touched, not to have your autonomy encroached upon. So what I'm saying is, and what Stardust is saying, is that there is this dangerous double messaging, right? Where we're saying, no, you're liberated. You can dress however the fuck you want. And then people are saying, well, cover your drinks. But the connection between the two, we need to be very distinct about. Unfortunately, we need to dismantle rape culture 100%, right? No one is disagreeing with that. No one is suggesting that we should be saying, be careful, if you dress like that, you're asking for it. No one's saying you're asking for it by dressing a certain way. What they are saying is, unfortunately, if you put stuff out there as much as you shouldn't be touched, we're at a stage in society right now where we don't not have rape culture. You live in rape culture. Someone's going to grab you, and you need to be prepared for that. We need to do other things, but telling women, just dress like a slut and you'll be fine, don't worry about it. That's not the way to get rid of rape culture.
Okay, so Joe, I had a different.
Dress like a slut is a bad
phrase,
and I regret it.
No, that's cool. All right, so I'm going to yell at Joe, then I'm yelling at that. I'm going to go to Anna and say, but so Joe, I had something different to say to you, but then would you say that on the opposite side of that, if that's your line of thinking, and I don't necessarily disagree with it, but wouldn't the ultimate conclusion be that you should not, right? Like as a woman, because it does put yourself at a certain level of risk, right? As you've stated, then you should advise women to not go to a club or anything, or have any of those dresses that you're talking about, those outfits, that those should be in the trash, right? You should have a wardrobe that decreases your risk and not stray from that, because we haven't reached this society. I mean, that would be the
no, because I'm not.
Okay.
I'm not telling people how to dress. I'm saying if you want to wear that little body bandage, little tiny deep cleavage thing, fucking wear it. Just be aware so that you have the awareness to know what you're on the lookout for. You should see me when I go out. I cannot wait for this lockdown to end. I wear all sorts of shit, but when I wear that, I know that I'm going to be looking out for very different things than I would be if I was wearing my slacky dacks, okay? And so all I'm saying is, when we do this thing where the young women who are going out to these slut walks, a lot of the time they're like, wow, yeah, they're misrepresenting to some people who are there the reality that currently exists. As much as we want to push and create a different society, the reality that currently exists means that if you're dressed up to be like pretty hot, be ready for that. Be ready for the extra attention that you're going to get.
Okay.
That's all that we're saying. We're
I
not
mean,
saying we're
for
stepping
the
out.
love
So,
of God, you can put
You
dating
aware,
stuff
look at-
into
So
that.
we'll go to Missy.
If I can just tag.
Oh,
Okay.
no, we're going to Missy first. And Missy, I'm sure you have other things to say, but you said specifically that women are dressing like this for men's consumption, but my understanding that women dress for themselves, right? Like the opposite, where they dress like that for themselves. So even if they happen to be wearing something that's visually pleasing for men, right? Still, like that's something from. So it's like this protest shouldn't necessarily be for them, right? Like the fact that they're wearing scantily clad outfits isn't necessarily that they are advertising themselves. They're advertising that
I'm never advertising
no,
myself, but you can't. You can't. Sorry, but you cannot disentangle these two things. You can't say that a woman dresses for herself, and that has nothing to do with the social sort of dictations of what looks good, and that often relates to what is sexually attractive to men. You can't disentangle these two things and suggest that a woman dresses a certain way for herself, and that has nothing to do with social trends about what looks good.
Okay, Missy.
It's just
So, you know what? I'm just gonna be honest, it has to be said. So, when a man is sexualizing a woman, never, ever, ever am I ever defending him acting on that. Don't touch the woman. Don't think that woman. But if you are dressing provocatively, biologically, that man is going to get sexually attracted, and there's absolutely nothing wrong with him for it. That is just biology, and you are dressing in a way that attracts that kind of attention, and they don't control it. Now, that doesn't mean that they need to act on it. That doesn't mean they need to talk to you. That doesn't mean they need to do anything about that. But I don't want to be a science denier, you know? This is the main reason we dress our kids modestly. We have a dress code in school, things like that, because it actually is a legitimate distraction to the learning environment. And that's no hate to women. I wish we lived in a place where this wasn't a concern, but
victim blaming as fuck.
I don't victim blame.
Is it more or less, hey, I'm going to date to meet a man. I'm going to dress up, go out in the town, maybe meet someone.
I don't victim blame at all. I said that he should, even if he's sexually attracted, he should never act on that in a way. I said he should never touch her, never do that. I literally specifically said that.
Also, I just want to say that, like,
but it's a distraction.
I obviously dress for, well, not obviously, but I dress for myself, and just because I'm not ignorant enough to know that men don't think I'm not dressing for them.
Yeah, men are gonna make that assumption. I think Missy is maybe didn't articulate it in a way that I get what you're saying. I get what you're saying, Missy, right? And what you're saying is that people are going to be attracted to you, and some people don't know how to fucking act. Right? Some people don't know how to fucking act, and maybe they should know. But the reality of the situation is that some people don't know how to fucking act, and you should keep your eye out for those people who don't know how to fucking act. If you're gonna, that's how I go. I'll go dressed up, right? And yeah, I have to keep my eye out for people who don't know how to act. So
exactly.
So it's not a distraction, okay? Because teenage boys can control their behavior, and they can control whether they're staring at someone and like objectifying them. So I don't really it sort of felt like it was like victim blaming girls for for distracting boys. Do you see how that kind of comes off as like a little bit like, oh, like girls need to cover up because they're like distracting the boys in school? Like that seems kind of sexist.
I'm sorry, I gotta disagree with you there, Anna. Dating methods have been for the last God knows how many thousands of years, the whole peacocking of it all, the display of it all. There's a reason why men are attracted to certain women. I mean, Lord knows there's hot enough women they could wear a garbage bag outside and a man will fucking trip over left, right, and sideways for him. You know what I mean? But let's say you're going out on a night on the town, right? Like you're going out. You're technically putting yourself out into like a dating premise. If you're like, oh, I'm out with the girls, most of the time, guys will be like, oh, okay, my bad. I'm out.
Okay. Let's go to Zonia.
Yeah. So, like for me, I dress conservatively, typically, not like super conservatively. Just like I don't tend to dress in ways that are very revealing. My own intention behind the way that I dress is because I'm asexual. For those of you who don't know, and I don't want the attention. I know I will get the attention if I dress in certain ways. I'm going to get the attention anyway sometimes, especially if I go to a bar with some friends or something like that. But dressing in certain ways is going to draw more of that attention, and I don't want it. So for me, that is my approach. Now, I don't think anybody here, from what I can tell, is trying to victim blame or anything like that, or trying to say that, hey, you're what you're doing is a distraction or whatever. I think what they're trying to say is that there are certain realities that currently exist that we all need to be aware of, and we need to make sure that those who are influenced by us are also aware of them. And in the meantime, continue fighting the battle to change things, but
But I
also
think,
arming
sorry.
people with knowledge and awareness, right?
Yeah, it's just I think we need to hold boys responsible for being if they're distracted by like girls' bodies. Like that has nothing to do with them. Like that's on we need to teach them to be
Why?
responsible.
Women always hoot and holler at men without their shirts on if they got a six pack.
Thank you.
Well, I mean, okay, but that's like whataboutism though, isn't it? Because it's
You're
like
what about in this? Because like, let's face it, like we as women sexualize men pretty aggressively. I mean, let's face it, like half of our book series out there are basically like he glittered in the goddamn sunlight, or hell, Game of Thrones alone has a whole story arc where just a woman
well,
kept
I
a
don't
male
know if that's
harem.
sexual objectification of
But
men
we
or just
take
like
that into our real life. Like, god dang it, I'm in 3 different Discord groups where it's just nothing but ab channels.
Thank you.
Why are you in
yeah,
3 different
those are
Discord
still
groups?
anecdotal. Like that's still anecdotal, you know. And like, I mean, I
I
don't
see
know. I
Thunder
think
from
people
Down
are
Under every
different.
year.
Yeah,
How
I
dare
love
you?
you.
Let's go to Missy, then Toasty, then Joe.
But on that, I do have to leave.
Okay.
My Dungeons and Dragons group already started. I'll see you guys
I
later.
love you.
Have a good one. Thank you. Missy,
Thanks for coming.
Missy, Toasty, and Joe.
I'm gonna go ahead and say that in school you can be distracting on the way you dress. Now here, I'm not blaming minors. I'm saying that they are minors. Therefore, they are not an adult. They are not of like a mind where they've understood how the world works. So therefore, why are we letting them make such important decisions about how they dress, how sexual they want to be, if we're not even allowing them to be at the age of consent yet? Like this is why we don't let kids dress that way, is because they're not like, they don't have our adult level intelligence in order to consent to dressing that way, if that makes sense.
Oh man. Boy, this is gonna be a fight.
I thought
Let's
I
go
was
to
the conservative sad one here, but
Yeah.
apparently
I'm,
not.
I'm just honest. It's biology.
Oh.
Like
Well,
Not biology. Stop using that as an excuse, unless you could.
it is.
do some
If you're
research.
showing your tits, they're gonna get a boner. Like, just be honest.
Oh boy.
I'm not saying that they should rape you because of it.
Let's go to Toasty.
I'm just saying, like, the way you dress can affect the way they're going to perceive you. We have these little things in our brains, like the little, things go off when we see things. Like, come on. And girls do it to guys all the time too.
I think it's still the way you're presenting it, probably. So there's just like a miscommunication, maybe, with that. Because yes, it's true that there definitely are certain men. Yes, absolutely. Like, okay, can I make this point, because I've been wanting to say this for like the past half hour. Can I just say that, like, actually, yeah, we do know that research shows that, like, so women who have been socially labeled as like slut, who are like viewed as sluts, they do actually receive more sexual harassment and stuff. So like that is true. And also it's true that research shows that certain men, not all men, it's really important to make that distinction, to not generalize all men. It's certain men will perceive women dressed like, I don't know, how do I say this, provocatively? I don't know. Dressed provocatively, like they will perceive the women as, oh, she's trying to get male attention, or like she wants it or something. Yeah, and that's really disturbing that these men think that way. It's really disturbing, and like something needs to be done with it. But I mean, that's so, yeah, there's just something that teenage girls should certainly be educated on, for sure, but definitely not all men. So
oh boy. Toasty, and then Joe, and Missy, don't worry, I'm gonna come for you later on. Toasty.
I just have a general question for the panel, because we talked about before about how like we agreed that there should be like some desexualization, destigmatization of like women's clothing. Like you shouldn't have to worry about that. but we also agree that there is a risk associated with wearing, you know, more provocative clothing out in public. So how do we go about like destigmatizing and desexualizing if wearing the clothes is a risk? How do we get past that?
Okay.
Good question.
Let's go to Joe. Oh, wow. Just amazing.
Let's go to Joe. I found it. Don't worry. I was going to say that given the complexity that we, as a bunch of quite forward-thinking, educated young women, are running into having this discussion on a panel, this is maybe the point I'm trying to make about the ways in which the slut walk might fall short of making its point. Right? In terms of like, this is a complex topic, and sexual expression, sexual liberation, sexual desire are all very complex, similar, but distinct ideas. And I'm not sure that the slut walk does a good job at moving this conversation forward. Now, I sort of disagree with everyone and agree with everyone in that, like, I agree with Anna that men should be held accountable, even young boys should be held accountable for their actions. And while there is certainly a biological element, that there's biology you can't control, you can choose to keep yourself in control. Like, it's not like men are just walking around seeing women and getting boners. There are boobs everywhere. We live in a society where advertisement is based on the sexualization of women's bodies. There are boobs everywhere. Men are not walking around with persistent boners just because there are boobs around. Okay, so like, we do have to keep that responsibility on men, and suggesting that women need to have a sort of like practical understanding of the danger that they can quite often be in any way takes away from keeping the responsibility on men is 100% not the point. Men are still responsible when they rape people. A culture in which men objectify women and sexualize women persistently is not the fault of women. It's not the fault of women existing that they are sexualized, because this is the other failing of the slut walk. It doesn't matter what you wear. Exactly what Toasty was just saying. You can wear anything and be sexualized. So, I don't think that saying that women should have an idea about like how they may be perceived differently depending on what they are wearing in any way is victim blaming. I'm saying that if the issue is that men can't walk 10 paces without sexualizing and objectifying every woman they run into, there are different ways that we attack that, not by getting dressed up with our friends and walking around calling ourselves sluts. That's all I'm saying. There's a better way to attack that problem.
I'm glad we can understand the concept of intermittent boners. All right, Missy, go ahead.
Maybe it's just because I'm bisexual, but you said that boobs are boobs, and boobs never get old to me. So it doesn't matter how many times I've seen them. If I see boobs, it's gonna cause a reaction.
Same.
But also,
that doesn't everyone who watches Prime's chat knows that I definitely am attracted to women, and I can tell you without question that I have no issue with seeing a woman who has her boobs out and not reacting sexually. Like, it is actually possible to be a human being and compartmentalize, and just because there are boobs there doesn't mean you're like, you know what, I'm going to treat her like an object, and if I decide I want to assault her, that's fine. That's all we're saying, that you can compartmentalize. Biology maybe is responsible for having an attraction, certainly, but you are also, as a human being who is an adult, capable of going, not the place. In the same way, you know not to take a shit in the street, you know that sometimes it's not appropriate to have an attraction. That's
exactly what I've been saying.
I need to take a shit.
I feel like you guys have been misconstruing it. Like, I've just been saying that, like, there's an attraction, but it's still ultimately always men's responsibility to realize, you know, that's a hot woman, but I'm just gonna leave her alone, because just because she's hot does not mean that she's asking me to act on anything. But I will say that if men are considerate to me, I will be considerate to them. So in a workspace, I do dress modestly. I don't wanna like have anything awkward, and that's just my personal opinion. If a woman doesn't feel that way, okay, I understand. None of us asked to be women, so
Yeah, I don't think this was your point, but I want to like push back on the fact that you made this sound like it was a hot woman's issue.
No, it's just any woman's issue, really. Sorry.
Yeah. So, but
Prime is like days.
No, it's
brain melting.
No, it's fine. No,
I just took the devil's advocate. Like, I just took it all the way. So you're welcome.
No, it's fine. It just seems like the only lesson, like, okay, the notion that a woman's dress is not invitation for anything to happen, right? Well, like I was looking through images of the slut walk. That's what they were talking about. They were actually talking about that. That this is not an invitation, and they have speeches and they talk about the assaults of different women and the purpose of all this, and it seems like they're covering exactly what you're talking about, right? It seems to me that like it's the display more than anything else that is bothering you. Like Joe, you brought up and I'm sure I think I got the term wrong, but something along the lines of like protest tourism. Look, that's like a part of every movement. Like any popular movement, like you Occupy, BLM, Slut Walk, anything that's popular, that's getting in the news, right? It's gonna be a certain level of people who are not engaged, right, and aren't deep into like the subject matter, don't have a great understanding, and are just kind of participating. But
Okay,
you know what?
Prime, I've got a question though. I've got a question for you though. This is like genuine. What is the call to action of the slut walk?
What is the call to action of the slut walk?
So obviously, like for instance, when I go and I protest deaths in custody of Indigenous Australians, there are specific demands being made based on a big report that was put to the government, which changed the way that police interact with Indigenous communities, which changed the way that what laws need to be decriminalised, that changed interactions between Indigenous communities and the state. They're a very specific call to action in terms of how we change material reality to change the experiences of Indigenous Australians when they interact with the state. So what is the call to action of the slut walk?
What was the call to action of Occupy?
I'm not a, I don't, there, I gave you an example of a protest with a very specific call to action. So now I'm asking, instead of asking me about a different one, I'm asking you to give me...
The reason why I'm bringing it up, is because, yes, there are protests that aren't very well structured, right? But it doesn't mean that they don't serve a purpose. So I hear you that there is...
So what did Occupy achieve? I know you were involved in Occupy, so what did Occupy achieve?
Yes.
Ultimately.
Occupy, in the end, like, man, on one, it changed the language at the time, right? In terms of how...
What language did it change?
Specifically, the 99% versus the 1%. Setting a narrative that the rich are so far above us, and the privileges are so far above us, that they cannot, one, effectively be managed by the regular structures of democratic society. So this also comes in with the too big to fail narrative, right? Like these both these mega corporations and these individuals being in the 1%, they are their wealth puts them in a different strata, and
so that how did that affect materially? What was the material effect of that?
It wasn't much. Like my point is, so this is what I'm trying to get to, right? Is that even though, like, so my problem with Occupy was because it was decentralized. Because if you asked different people who were a part of it, they'd have different ideas as to what the whole point of it was, right? But I still think in itself, Occupy was worthwhile, right? And so, like the slut walk,
I hear you, and I'm asking you, I'm just asking you to be very clear.
Okay.
So you're saying that Occupy was worthwhile because it introduced the language of the 99% and the 1%, but we haven't seen any actual material realities change because of that language. Is that what you're saying?
Well, I would, material...
Can I interject something here? Hold on. So, like, often when, like, we do protests and organize and stuff, the call to action is actually the protest to bring awareness.
But okay, well then this is just a political problem, right? Because anyone who watches my channel knows there's nothing more that I hate than any raising awareness bullshit. For me, I think that's an absolute distraction. I think it stops you from doing real political action most of the time. Because if you're telling me that people are not aware that women are getting sexually assaulted and are objectified, then that's ridiculous. I don't need a protest to know that women are getting raped left, right, and center, and often that's being blamed on how they present themselves. I don't need a woman to walk around in scantily clad outfits in order to make that point. I'm very aware of that point. So if I'm going to have a protest to challenge the objectification of women, I want a strict call to action that challenges material reality or meaningfully challenges the way that we socially view women. And I don't see how the slut walk contributes to that at all.
But the other thing that happened with Occupy was, and this is where I was going to get to, right? The other thing at Occupy is that it dragged people into politics, right? People who hadn't thought about these things, right? It made them political, and then years down the line, actually, those same people were leading the charge in things like BLM, right? Those same people were got involved themselves in the democratic process, right? And who were part of the machinery, right? Like that. These protests, even and like there are many problems with Slut Walk. That's fine, but like these protests in and of themselves have benefits that maybe go beyond a specific call to action and specific outcomes, right? Like whether this specific demand has been met. Is all I'm saying.
Okay. But my issue with so much feminist action is that it ultimately always comes down to raising awareness and sharing our stories. And we all go to these activities and we share how we've been traumatized and we listen to one another. And then, oh my God, we're aware of the trauma that one another have been through. And oh my God, now that we're aware, we've done our political work for the day and we'll just rest easy because now we know the suffering that one another have been through and we've raised awareness. And so we can pat ourselves on the back and go home and know that we're good, true feminists who've really challenged the system by telling our stories as a traumatized victim.
I agree. Hey, I agree with that.
You sound so based right now.
Let's go to Zonia and Stardust.
Yeah, so I've often had a major disagreement with a lot of advocacy because I feel like advocacy is sort of like a cheap way of feeling good about something but not actually doing anything, and I think it does end up resulting in a lot of lazy approaches to issues. But there is sort of like there's like a window where a movement draws attention to something and makes people more aware, oftentimes the people who need to be made aware, like in the case of women's movements, it's oftentimes making men more aware of the situation, right? Even though most women understand that we're sexualized, and of course a lot of, most men are going to know it as well, but there's still going to be a lot of just kind of just not paying attention to the issue because you're not the one with people's eyes on you constantly and people constantly trying to grope you, etc., right? So you're not going to be paying attention to it as frequently. So I think that with a lot of these movements, there's sort of a period where initially there is a drawing more attention on a subject and bringing it more into the spotlight to get more people to pay attention to it and talk about it, and perhaps from there go forward and do something. But the inevitable downside to these demonstrations is that they very quickly become kind of hijacked by a sort of performative, benign action, right? Where it becomes sensationalized and it becomes about the aesthetic and it becomes about the being part of the group, one of the cool ones involved in the movement, etc. And so then it drops off at that point. But I think there's like a sweet spot there where it first starts and people become more aware of things and start paying more attention to it. And some of those people go on to then actually take action and try to change things.
Go ahead, Stardust. And then Smash.
Yeah. Sorry, am I unmuted? Let me see.
You're
Oh
good.
yeah, okay.
You didn't pull a joke. Go ahead.
Okay. Yeah, I was just gonna say that I really liked Joe's point about this cycle we go through where we tell our stories and we all empathize, and then we figure we've finished the job and we go home. And while I'm sure there's some value in expressing what you've been through, at the same time, I wonder if that's perpetuating like this re-victimization of people, and almost like in a way infantilizing women who go through this, and infantilizing a woman's ability to advocate for herself if we continue to like this cycle of where we don't actually enact any material change, but we just speak, right? So and I find that that's something I actually have a huge issue with, even in a lot of these spaces, is that people are so focused on reliving their trauma, continuing to live in the past, and that's like the last thing you want to do. You want to move forward and advocate and prevent it from happening to other people, right?
Let's go to
So
Amanda.
Polly.
Amanda and
Yeah.
Missy.
Yeah, so my point was more agreeing with Joe, and I also think that this is a lazy approach and somewhat performative. I'm not sure what we accomplish by shouting slurs and objectifying ourselves that couldn't be accomplished without doing that.
Okay, Missy.
And I have a question for you. I wonder, what's your problem with just acknowledging what the way women dress realistically does to men? I mean, are we just really gonna play stupid and not pretend like wearing a skimpy outfit does something to men? I mean, I'm not justifying misbehavior, but are women really being realistic and honest in this conversation? How many women dress for themselves? Most of them, but not all the time. I've had friends that are like, I'm wearing this outfit so a guy notices me. And some women are like that. Not all are. Not generalizing. But what's wrong with being honest about what outfits can do? What's wrong with it? How does one thing automatically lead to me being victim blaming?
So
Like, how does me just acknowledging that this can make a man think a certain way automatically mean that I am defending what he does as a result of it? It doesn't.
Because I guess maybe the thing is the way you're wording it sounds like what they're wearing is like provoking their actions.
yeah.
Well, that's why we call it provocative. That's literally what we call it. We call it wearing a provocative outfit. That's the literal word for it.
Are you sure?
Thought provoking.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Can I make a quick comment on this? Is that I have to say I don't know. I've never lived in the body of a male, so I don't know if the reality is that I'm gonna automatically get a boner every time I see boobs. Right? I think it's a little bit reductive to kind of think that way. Right? As somebody who's also attracted to women, I'm not in the mood at the MVA. I'm sorry, I'm not in the mood. Like I'm not seeing like I might see boobs and be like, oh, boobs, but like whatever, dude, I'm not in the mood. Yeah, I think it's a little bit reductive, right? It's kind of like, I know you're not victim blaming, Missy. I know you're not. I'm just saying that I don't think men are animals. I don't think
They
men
are.
are. Yeah, I think men have the capabilities in their brain to make decisions, but a lot of them are taught that they don't, have to think about those decisions, and a lot of men are taught like, oh, like I can just do whatever, So, but they have the ability, either like very capable people, very capable brains. Everybody has the ability. So
Stardust, I think you're
yeah.
giving me too much credit. But I think so. My problem with what's being said is that the end result seems to be exactly what the more conservative types, like that officer who inspired the slut walk in the first place, want in the first place. Right? Like, okay, well, acknowledging that, and what you're saying is, correct, right? Like there is a difference in how a person is perceived and the reaction that you'll get depending on the outfit that you have on, but it seems like just the end result, like the logical conclusion, is cover up.
No.
No. Okay.
No.
Is it really not that simple?
Wear whatever you want, and just be aware that certain things will garner different attention. You just
All right.
They
you
already
just
know
don't want to
that.
entertain. Wait, you don't want to entertain other solutions, Prime. How would you feel if I was like, maybe a great way to I'm just doing this to shit
No,
stir,
go
but I
ahead,
just have
please.
to.
I love it.
Maybe a great way to stop the widespread objectification and over-sexualization of women would be to regulate our porn industry a little bit.
Mhm.
Maybe we should get rid of a
Actually,
bit
that's
of
correct.
porn.
Yes.
Maybe instead of saying, and I'm just like, I'm not saying that this is my position necessarily. I'm just saying it's so interesting to me. I love giving you shit on this. It's so interesting to me that you fully support advocacy that involves women getting dressed up like sluts and calling themselves sluts and walking around in skimpy little outfits. But God forbid we suggest maybe regulating the way that women are shown in the media, regulating the treatment of women in the media. I mean, God forbid we say, maybe, you know what, like, not to kink shame. I'm just coming up with the first thing that comes in my head, but maybe the widespread and easy accessibility of people who may be victims of trafficking, having their heads flushed down the toilet for sexual excitement, is something that has deleterious effects on the way that people broadly view women. Now, I'm not saying that that is necessarily true. I'm not arguing that point. I'm just saying there are lots of different ways that the widespread objectification of women could be countered. And I don't understand why you're so guns and horses for this one.
I'm not, but the thing is not. And Toasty, I see your hand, so we'll go to you next. I'm actually not at all.
I just need to say, because I was trolling you then, and I just need to say for my own reputation, I'm very pro sex worker, so I'm not trying to in any way be swerfy or anything like that. I'm just saying it's interesting to me that the only way that you can understand an argument about women's sexuality and challenging that is by saying, well, your argument about saying that women calling themselves sluts and dressing up, that's just asking them to wear a burqa.
So
yeah, it's the whole jumping to conclusions about things.
No,
I'm sorry, I don't know what I'm doing.
Okay.
No, I love you. I love you.
So Joe wants to escalate with me, but I'm not going to escalate with her. That's fine. We'll do that some other time. And I love to have that fight. And don't worry, Toast, I'm not going to go to you. But like, yeah, that's look. I'm only reacting to your words. I don't have any special affinity for the slut walk. I don't give a shit about them. Whatever, right? You want to have a different protest for it? Whatever. But like the words that I'm hearing, like you're saying, well, yeah, dress however you want, and then you should just know that there's a possibility. But women already know. They already know. No woman who is in this channel is being introduced to this concept.
I think you're assuming
No woman who young girl who is going to these types of parties, right, isn't told, first of all, isn't just shamed for her body, not just by men, right, but by other women, right, like saying that, oh, you've dressed a certain way, right, like society.
So now the issue's body shaming. It's weird that it's so unclear to you what the message of the slut walk is. It's weird that you can't understand what the message of the slut walk is. It's almost as if there isn't a clear call to action and purpose to the slut walk. What? That's crazy.
And you're like you're assuming.
You're assuming.
Let Stardust talk. It's a women's panel. Let her talk.
I want to talk.
I'm going to respond. So I said parties. I didn't say like the slut walk, like women going to parties, period, right? And dressing a certain way. Society will socialize you one way or the other, let you know that the way you are dressing is going to attract a certain type of attention. That it's going to put you in a certain type of attention. No one is like, just like you're saying that I don't have to learn about women's abuse. No, women don't have to learn from the slut walk or from anything else that their appearance has consequences, right? I get that, but you guys, you two, don't seem to be getting that, or you three, don't seem to be getting that. So like that's my problem. But all right, let's go Toasty and Stardust. Toasty and Stardust.
No, let's Stardust has been, sorry, Toasty. It's just Stardust has been trying to get in on this point, and I'm worried that you're going to say a point that moves away.
She can go ahead.
Yeah.
Thank you. I appreciate that. So, Prime, what I would say in response to you is that you're making an awful lot of assumptions here. You're assuming that everybody is socialized as a woman in the same way, when we know that a lot of women are not socialized that way. A lot of women are kept protected, kept in their home. They're not told about going to these parties. If you're not told about going to these parties and you assume that your perfect daughter is never going to go to a party, then you're not going to tell her that, that these are the consequences of these might be the consequences of dressing a certain way. I'm sorry, Prime. I'm glad that you have this unique experience to you, but it's not the same for every single woman. In every woman's experience, the way that they're socialized is going to be different based on the culture that they come from, based on their parents, based on their religion. It's going to be different. So if you are somebody who has come from, you can do that all you want. You can make all the faces you want to.
Absolutely will, but go
if
ahead.
If you come from a sheltered background and you are not used to dressing a certain way and you are not used to interacting with people in a certain setting, then yes, you need to be told that. And that might be in college. That might be when you're in your 20s that you learn that.
So I'm sorry, no, this point makes no sense, right? As if there's one vector for socialization, right? Isn't just like people and I introduced a few different points, right? Like parties and schools, and then family, yes, and people have their experiences. All of them are different, right? And then there's the media, but this message of how women dress, penetrates, right? What you brought up to counter me is an example of a woman who is sheltered at home dressing a certain conservative manner, right? Well, why are they dressing that conservative manner?
You think that's not
the norm? No, that is, but I'm like, why is that? Mommy, I think that dress looks pretty. No, that dress is for sluts, baby.
You think that she's gonna know when she goes to a party that somebody might grope her?
I'm saying that the chances that an individual doesn't get this message, I'm sure you could point to someone, right? I'm sure you can point to someone, but I don't think that's why, how you should structure a protest. I don't think that has to come into the fact that maybe someone somewhere doesn't understand this concept. It's a very basic concept within our society.
Not someone somewhere, though. It's a significant amount of people who are raised that way.
Give me stats then. Fine.
It's really understanding demographics.
You give stats. You're the one who's saying.
No, you're making the claim that you are making the claim that there are these women who
you were making the claim that everyone just knows. You were making the claim that every woman just knows.
Then we'll both come up with stats then. No problem.
I really want to jump in on this.
Toasty's net, and then my panel now.
Yeah, I was gonna say something about because Joe brought up something about how porn affects the way that men perceive women. I think that there's some merit to that. There's been different studies that show specifically at a younger age being exposed to things like more violent porn scenes. There's a specific study. It showed that there was a 6-fold increase of sexual aggressiveness in kids that watched more violent X-rated material and things like that. And I think things could definitely with how common it is, with how normalized porn addiction is and stuff like that. It's I don't know. I could definitely see it damaging the way that men view women, especially if they don't have any other experience with women. They never had a girlfriend. They've never had sex or anything like that. Their only experience with sex is these very unrealistic videos and depictions of what women are like or want.
Sonia, want to jump in and then Smash? Right?
Yeah.
And
so obviously things are changing with more and more awareness, which is part of the reason why I'm okay with these movements initially when they first start, because they do draw a little bit more awareness onto an issue. But one thing that I remember when I was in college was that a lot of friends of mine had gotten into situations that were very bad for them, and didn't really understand, and we're not even talking drinks spiked all the time, although that did happen, but didn't understand just how a lot of young men will act at that age, still fairly immature, not really familiar with the world. And then you've got girlfriends of mine who also were not very familiar with how things worked. They grew up in Christian households that were very conservative, and then they're on their own as adults. They're kind of thrust into a world that they were not really adequately informed of. And that's changing these days. Social media definitely broadens the scope of this information, even for those being raised in more conservative and traditional households. But there's still the opportunity for adding more for bringing more of that awareness and knowledge. And there are still gaps there, and you're still going to find people who are suddenly thrust into an adult world not really prepared for these kinds of things.
Yeah, that was kind of my point. I really liked how Stardust brought up how like society and parents like protect girls, and then like with the slut walk, we kind of just throw them out there, right?
Okay, let's go to Anna.
Oh, sorry. I was gonna say that, yeah, man, everybody's so based. The porn stuff is really important, actually, and since everybody knows, my my research specialization is porn research, and that's what I want to do is research more porn and sex work. Um, but so yeah, that's actually a really big issue, though, is that is especially younger, like teenage boys, younger boys, yeah, watching porn. There's just been so many studies on this that shows that it like, I mean, a lot of it's correlation, like it's correlative, so that has to be kept in mind that it might not necessarily be that the porn causes the attitudes, but it could be that certain boys and men are like, we do know this is the case, that like the men who watch the most porn tend to also have the most like sexist views of women and tend to be the most like most likely to support rape myths, things like that. There's just so much of this, so it's really important to like look at the porn industry as well and see how the impact that's having on society, and if it's like, I mean, it does in a way, like it reflects societal like misogyny, as well as racism, transphobia, etc. But it also seems to reinforce that as well. So it's like this vicious cycle. But anyway, yeah, that's really just mostly what I wanted to say.
Stardust. Any second?
Sorry. Right. So I think that's an interesting point. I don't know a whole lot about the porn industry. I do know that there recently was some stuff that was found to be very exploitative. But what I do know is that there was a statistic that the rate of people who get cosmetic surgery on their labias has gone up, and a lot of people attribute that to the prevalence of porn. And it's not necessary. It's a non-necessary surgery. So
It's just cosmetic, you mean?
So let's go to. Yeah, I've always found that weird because porn features all kinds of labias, but I mean, from what I've heard from friends. Joe, go ahead, please.
Yeah, I think now that I've taken a step back and cooled down, I've had a minute to reflect on my point. And I think you actually said something that gets to the core of it, Prime, which is this idea of women dressing for themselves. This gets to the key point of my contention, right? It's that the slut walk says, dress however you want, right? We send lots of mixed messages about how women should dress, right? Dress however you want. Do your provocative TikToks and your Instagram posts where you wear next to nothing until you reach the age of consent and you're old enough to move your fan base across to an OnlyFans where you can then profit off it, because obviously your value in society is going to be sexual because that is how you are valued by society. But you're dressing for yourself because when you dress that way, you get lots of likes, you get lots of attention, you get all of this praise. It's definitely for yourself though. And just because you dress that way, you dress in a way that means that you're valued, because we have a pornified society that sees you only as a sex object. Just because you want to dress as a sex object, because that's how you want to dress, make sure that nobody views you as a sex object. That is not okay. Definitely not. So my question is, right? And I think that people who watch me, and I think you know, that I'm extremely sex positive. I'm about liberating female sexual desire. I'm about everyone having amazing sex. I'm about us talking about sex in a way that makes sex good for everyone, right? But if you look at statistics today, there is a downtrend in the amount that people are actually having sex. There is a huge downtrend in the amount of sex that is being had, and there's a huge downtrend in how much good sex is being had. But there is a significant increase in porn. There is a significant increase in the sexualization of young women and girls. And that's not me saying that we should be forcing women to wear trad dresses or anything like that. I am saying when you say something like women are dressing the way that they choose to dress, I am asking you to question why women want to dress that way. Why does anyone want to dress any sort of way? Why is it that young women and young girls are wearing bras and calling them tops and posting bikini photos until they turn 18 and create OnlyFans? I sound so sex negative on this panel, but the question that I always raise as someone who wants everyone out there fucking their fucking brains out, okay? That's what I want for the world. But ultimately, my question is, if there is a downtrend in sex and the sex that women and people generally are having is not satisfying and is very bad, but we're seeing an increase in sexualization of young women, when you say something like a woman is choosing to dress that way, what do you mean?
This is the question.
How you know they're making a choice? Yeah, I want to know if you've ever questioned that choice.
Well, okay, Joe, you absolutely know that I have, right? So
I'm asking you to do it again
I'll do
in
it.
front
No,
of
we'll do
you
it again.
right now on this panel.
I'll do it again. But
yeah, right now.
She already knows that I have.
Bitch.
I love.
Prove it. Do it.
I love Joe in this way. She's the best. She's
Stop stalling.
Okay, no.
Just tell her.
Yes, well, I've gone on a whole journey as a man on the left, right? When you are growing up, I was having this conversation with our friend Amanda, actually. When you were growing up, you don't. At least I didn't. Let me not speak for all men.
Hold on. Careful. No. Are you bringing up like?
No. Don't worry. Don't worry. Okay. I'm not gonna bring up anything private. No. Growing up as a child, right? Like, I'll speak for myself. I didn't truly understand all the reasons why women did the things that they did. And so, like, this brings up like the makeup issue that you and I have talked about. Like, why are women wearing makeup? If I tell a woman, and honestly, that the fact that you without makeup are still beautiful, right? Maybe even more beautiful without makeup, why would you get upset about that? It doesn't make sense, right? The point of makeup is to enhance your beauty for the outside world, and especially like people like me, right? But maybe that's not why they wear it. I've discovered that, right? Like, that wasn't immediately obvious. It's not immediately obvious to a lot of guys. Trust me on this. We don't know. We don't know because we don't talk about these things. So why do women dress the way that they do? Well, it seems to have a reaction from people like me, right? And it seems like you like that reaction from my outside perspective. So I guess it's for me that you're dressing that way, right? But I hear from women that that's not the case. That they like wearing these particular outfits. But why do they like it? I think that's interesting. Yes, because of our cultural norms that we've built up, right? Who has influenced fashion? Who owns like the magazines, right? Where so many of these styles come from, right? These magazines that also tell women about like being sex positive and like 46 ways to like blow his mind, right? Like he'll come fucking gallon if you do these acts, right? All lined up next to each other.
And come more than a teaspoon, actually. That's scientifically, it's been scientifically tested.
I can swear.
Exactly a teaspoon.
I can swear that I've. Okay. Anyway, no. I
hear guys say that all the time.
No, stop. I don't want to know.
Not more than a goddamn teaspoon.
Move past it.
Okay.
Move
I'm
on.
I'm moving on.
Wait, I want to hear more about this.
Okay.
For science.
For science. But yeah, like because men have had the reins of power, right, and have decided what women want, right? Even magazines telling them that what women want is actually to stay at home and to like vacuum. It's socially constructed. I get that. I understand that. So I'm not advocating for this particular demonstration as it stands. I actually think Missy had like a really interesting idea previously talking about like covering up. I think it would actually be just as shocking if you had a whole like line of women walking down the streets in something that's effectively like a full body burqa, right? Like that would actually be I think that would grab a lot of attention for all the same reasons, and it could be the same message, right? But like my problem is just with like how you were framing it. That's it. That was a lot, but I hope that answered your question.
Oh, I'm the problem.
Yeah.
Stardust, go.
Okay. Right. So one thing that I thought is really interesting you brought up is I don't know how many of the girls on this panel or people on this panel grew up reading like magazines like 17 and Cosmo and Vogue, right? And how much bad sex advice are in those magazines. We're reading this as virgins, reading that, oh, men will love this if you do this. And then then you hear from a friend who's like, oh no, I tried that, it was horrible. So yeah, there's so much messaging. A lot of the messaging around these magazines I remember was just about what do men want? What do men want from you? What do men want from all of us, right? It's not really about what you want. So yeah, I might want to dress up nicely, but why I want to dress up nicely is there's probably some subconscious, thing in my head, right? Where yeah, maybe Joe can explain it better. I don't know.
Well, no, Stardust, you're 100% right? Because it's like, I find that if someone, like, if I were to dress up, right, just using myself as the example, let's say I dressed up and then some dude was like, let's say I'm drunk, so I'm like in my like top liberal feminist form. So I'm wasted, I'm dressed up, and someone's like, damn, you look good. I might be like, I didn't get dressed up for you, right? Because I didn't get dressed up for that one guy. But ultimately, the market determines what is in fashion, what is in trend. And that is also determined by men generally. So while I may not have got dressed up for that one man who is giving me a compliment, in a way, I may have got dressed up for all men in that they control the market and they control fashion and they control what's on trend. So it is an interesting dichotomy where it is true that I didn't get dressed up for whoever is harassing me. But I did get dressed up because what is in trend tends to be something that highlights my sexual value, because ultimately women are only valuable as sexual objects in the marketplace. Does that answer your question, Prime?
My question.
Yes.
Did I ask a question?
You said, I don't understand. Women say they dress for themselves, but then you're saying that they dress for men. And I'm telling you, it's both.
What I just said was that. I said exactly that. That's what I said to you, right? The market determines, right? And what did I say? Oh, okay. All right, look, once again, a woman stealing a man's point, taking credit.
Okay, wait, can I just say as well, like, it is interesting. This is like, if you try and push for nuance, it's so funny to me that I can be like, I'm not sure that a march with no call to action that focuses on women's sexual expression, which is already incredibly liberated, women can wear whatever they want, I'm not sure that is particularly useful, that the reaction is, okay, Joe, so you want the Taliban. No. It's like, it shows the lack of our ability to have a discussion on this, that people can't understand anything between those two extremes, that either we're out there wearing out, like walking a Victoria's Secret show on the streets of our major cities, or we're in full burqas. The fact that people can't understand that there may be other call to action and other kinds of political movement shows the limitations with which we actually think about this space, which is why I constantly try to talk about this space, because we don't even have the language to discuss it. People conceptually aren't there to understand anything other than, oh my God, I've got complete and I'm actually totally liberated because I can wear a bikini and feel confident. And the Taliban, it's true, you can be able to express yourself however you want and not be liberated at all, in terms of being able to say, I don't want that, or you know what, I'm so horny right now. And the fact that women can't say either of those things and have them treated with respect shows that we're not liberated at all, even if we're able to walk around in bikinis.
So on a separate issue, and something that we were touched on previously, with that call to action, if a protest that did have a call to action failed, and like that call to action did not succeed, do you think it was worthwhile, Joe?
Well, I personally love protest. I think people physically getting into a space is extremely worthwhile if there is a call to action, in that it creates political networks, as you said, right? But if you're getting out and your protest movement is based on an aesthetic, and I'm not just talking about the slut walk, I'm talking about the Women's March, which was really all about those pussy hats.
Yeah.
I'm talking about anything that has an aesthetic attached. The likelihood of people actually networking there instead of just taking Instagram photos, I think, is significantly low. The likelihood of people not being excited by the movement instead of actually giving a shit about the politics that it's based on, I think is very low. So while I do think that if you have a call to action and it fails, it's meaningful because those people are invested in the politics, not in the event. If you're invested in the politics, if you are invested in women's sexual liberation in terms of desire, then even if that event fails, you will be at the next one. You will be there. You'll turn up day after day because you're invested in the politics. You're not invested in the idea of getting dressed up like it's Halloween.
I agree. Okay, so this is where we can find some common ground. In Occupy, and I'll go to STRDST next, I think. Yeah, okay. In Occupy, I think the difference is that it was sustained protest over a very long time, right? So you had people who were just there because, you know, it's big, it's flashy, it's getting lots of media attention, right? And I want to be on TV. But to sustain something like that takes people who are going to be invested, and the people who are involved, like in the administration of it all, right? But there's no fucking leadership because we can't have fucking leadership, whatever. Like they formed those networks that you're talking about. They came back. They became future Democratic operatives. Like I literally know people who became Democratic operatives and who like fought for Bernie in like 2016 and 2020, right? Those are the people who made that difference and like literally helped catapult his campaign to, well, where it ended up any which way, right? Like, but it takes, that has to be some sort of investment. So like if it's just there for the spectacle, right, then you kind of just go home. Like I was there, I took the Instagram photo, and then I go home. Right, so I hear you on that. STRDST.
Yeah, am I still muted? Did I mute my? Okay, I did not. Okay, sorry. Right. Going back to I forgot it.
Okay.
I think I forgot.
It was something
Sorry.
about how terrible I am, I'm sure, right? Did that jog your
No,
okay.
it wasn't about you being terrible. It was a point related to something.
Well, if it wasn't about me, then I'm not interested. All right. Sorry, I'm messing with you. Okay. Anyone else?
Said my piece.
You said your piece.
Oh, right. I know what it was now.
Okay.
Right. I was just going to add on that 100%. I would be so happy with a protest that didn't achieve its goal because at least it had like a clear goal. So.
Sorry. Say it again. You would be happy if a protest that didn't achieve its goal because then it would have a clear goal.
Well, at least people got together for a specific goal, specific cause, right? And even if they didn't achieve that, maybe they moved it a little bit further, right? Or maybe they moved some sort, or maybe they networked with each other, things like that.
Yeah,
so.
I mean, but okay.
Was about like to end victim blaming of like rape victims. I thought that was like the goal of it, though, isn't it?
How does it achieve that goal, though?
They walk around dressed in. Okay, I can't say provocative. That's problematic. And they have the sign that say like this doesn't mean yes and stuff. I don't know. Right? That's like what they do.
So my point is that like one, the fact that you're bringing this up now and we've sort of like walked circles around what the march does shows us that maybe the goal of the march isn't clear. If it's not clear for us, it's certainly not clear for the many, many people who rock up. And two, I just don't like raise awareness shit. I don't think it really works. I think if people at this stage aren't aware that a tight dress doesn't mean I am consenting to a sexual act, if they need a march to learn that at this point, then we have a problem.
My problem here is, I guess my final contention is that there is a value with taking space, right? Protests are so rarely like like focused and like well organized. Like that's my experience. Is that and people on message, right? Like when the media comes up and asks you, hey, what you doing there, right? Depending on who you ask, like you'll get a different answer, something wildly different, and something that may even make you look bad, right? Like we learned this in like BLM, right? Like protests are rarely that, but there's still a value in taking space. Now, again, it doesn't have to be a slot walk. I don't give a shit. Like, we're whatever you want. Again, we're burkers. Like, I don't care. Or maybe not being about burkers. Maybe it doesn't have to be like some sort of spectacle-based type thing. Whatever, right? But the fact that you are taking up space, right, has a certain level of value in it. You can say, and I can agree, that a protest with a call to action, maybe leadership with a clear direction, is better, right? God knows it's what I fucking argued before in Occupy. But I think there's, I guess I don't want to discount the work that goes into. Yeah, go ahead.
Look, I think you're making a point that like lots of people make. I mean, Butler even makes it like having a body in space is extremely valuable. Mm-hmm. But I ask you to explain to me why, in this case, why? What are you showing support for when you rock up to a slut march or whatever they're called, slut walk?
It was less support. It's more defiance, right? That, from my understanding, right? And again, everyone has a different understanding, but my understanding is that this is more an act of defiance. I'm saying that I can dress like this and exist in public, and that shouldn't be an issue, right? Like, you can't tell me, officer, who slut shamed that one woman originally, right? That I can't be in space like that. You can't control me in that way. And if something happens to me, that isn't my fault. Like, that's why, from my understanding.
Yeah, I mean, I agree with that point, and if that is what it's achieving, and I'm just not seeing it, then fine, I support it.
No, it's fine. I'm not saying that this is the most effective thing. Like, and I agree with you on your point of like not having a call to action, and it could be better formulated, right? You could have something that's more effective. But you know,
it's always, for me, it's like I'm so willing, if that is what it's achieving, cool, I support it. But ultimately I'm suspicious of any social justice activities that aim to raise awareness or do things that are more culturally based and don't attack material realities that actually, like, for instance, why not, I mean, like, I don't like training necessarily either, but like changing the education for police officers and instituting particular trainings around how they talk to sexual assault victims, how they assess that sort of thing. To me, that's material change, right? Doing sort of educational campaigns that have this sort of material change instead of, to me, this whole idea of like, I dressed up and I showed people that I could be in a space wearing a small dress and that was defiant. To me, it feels very much the same as like, I told everyone about how I was raped and that's the politics I've done about sexual violence. It's not politics. It's trauma masquerading as politics. And it is done by a neoliberal state to make you feel like you've done something so you never actually challenge the material reality. It is designed this way to stop you from doing material change because you feel like you're doing something. You have all the feelings. You raised all the awareness. You witnessed. You listened, but you did nothing. But you feel like you did something. And so ultimately, that's what I'm suspicious of. If you're telling me that it did have a meaningful change and that there were people who saw the slut walk who before truly believed that women wearing a small dress was consent or that they were somehow asking for it, and after that walk their opinion was changed, then I fully support it. But I'm not convinced that that has been the result of this political action.
I completely agree with you. I think a lot of, for instance, when we're taking down the statues, the Confederate statues, it made people feel that they were accomplishing something. We took down symbols, right? And the people in power, right? The powerful will always like sacrifice the symbols, right? And keep their power, right? If that's the thing that you're going to go after, then that's perfectly fine for them, right? It makes you feel like I've done something, I've changed the world, but have you? Right? And all the systems in place, right? The white white supremacy, systematic racism, they all still stand, right? It's just one less statue that most people probably didn't even know what it stood for until you talked about it, right? So I agree with you 100%. And this conversation has gone exactly like so many of the conversations between Joe and I, right? We very much agree, but we gotta fight and fight and fight until we realize that, oh yeah, I guess
you
we
agree with
agree.
me.
Yeah. Okay. All right, so thank you, everyone, to my audience. We will continue. The content is not over. We will continue with the open walk-on panel audience members like you. Yes, you sitting at home talking to you. You may be a part of it. If you have had an agreement here or a disagreement, if you think that I was right, or you think that I was right, then you can come on to the panel, join us, and tell me how great I am. If you have differing opinions, almost same. But so stick around for that. It'll be right after this. The stream does not end. The stream does not end. You need to go anywhere. The stream does not end. If you haven't done so already, hit that follow button right now. Hit that follow button. Make sure notifications are on. You know I'm going live. I do this 6 nights a week, right? We have these talks 6 nights a week. So they're really interesting talks. They're fantastic talks. We want you to be a part of that. So hit that follow button. Make sure notifications are on. Also, !social in chat for all of our social media. So be a part. Jump into Twitter, and you know, you'll get channel updates and whatnot. Discord is the heart and soul of this community, right? Be a part of the Discord. We're gonna have the open panel in the Discord. We have online and offline talks in the Discord, both in the VC and the text channels. It's a lot of fun. Be a part of that. Jump on in. We'd love to have you. Okay. And then YouTube. If you've missed any part of this, you'll find it on YouTube. That's where the VODs live, right? Not here, there, right? Like, comment, and subscribe. That part's very important. Okay, love to see it. All right, I'm going to give an outro to our amazing guests, but stick around. Again, the stream is not over. More content to come. Amanda Smash is who I'm going to introduce last. All right, I'm gonna Missy. Missy.
Wait, don't do that. My stuff's gonna crash soon. I'm at like 4%.
I wanted to like give you
okay.
a big outro before whatever. I'll do it now. So then, Amanda, this is all thanks to you. Thank you, being so kind, being so helpful, being so wonderful, and setting this all up. If it wasn't for you, this would not have happened. I give all credit to Amanda. All credit to Amanda. Thank you for thinking the space was so valuable that we had been trying to build before, that it needed to be resurrected. So, Amanda, say words.
Yeah, I am so happy at how this went. I thought everybody did amazing. I hope that Missy and Toasty will come back again, especially if Prime is going to continue the Amazon Lily. But I'm Amanda, and you can follow me on Twitch at Amanda Smash. And yeah, that's it. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you. All right. Next. No, Joe can be last then. Missy. Missy, thank you for being here. You were a brand new individual. Very happy to have you here. Love that you're opinionated, and I love that your opinions oppose my own. Because then it makes a much more interesting show. So, Missy, and then that you put up a good fight. So, Missy, tell the world about yourself.
Well, I'm sure that they've linked the stationery shop before. I mean, I would just like to say, if you were wondering why I was dying the entire time, it's because the chat just continued to make fun of my laugh, and that made it worse. But, yeah, I love everybody here, honestly, and I'm really glad that I got to be a part of this. So, thank you.
Thank you. All right, moving on. STRDST, not a stranger to my channel, right? You come here bringing the fire as you always do. Much appreciated. Love your perspective on these things. STRDST, tell the world about yourself.
Hey, I'm STRDST, STRDST _, on Twitch. You may know me because I often jump into Prime's panels and take up a meme position for no good reason, and just stir the pot. So, if you like that, or if you like just people hanging out and having a good time, then you know, come check me out on Twitch. So yeah.
Doke. Zonia, a very kind individual who I'm very grateful to have in my community, who is willing to listen being a helping hand. Sonia, thanks for being around. Thank you for being a part of this. Sonia, tell a little bit about yourself.
Yeah, I have been on a hiatus from streaming, but it's nice to finally come back and do some panels. I used to do panels more regularly when I was a full-time streamer, and this is it's nice. It's something I had missed, and I love being here with Prime and with some amazing women who I have a lot of respect for, and probably going to be getting back to streaming soon here as well. I'm thinking that I'm probably going to get a start on it in a couple weeks, so be on the lookout. Zonia Dead is my name on Twitch, also on Twitter, and yeah, hopefully I will see more of you soon. Thank you, Prime, and thank you everyone on the panel.
Thank you, Anna, for also coming through. Right, filling up these rosters is actually extremely difficult. I notified Anna just this morning. Other people had like a fucking week. But Anna, I just notified her just this morning, and she was so kind as to help fill in an empty slot. So thank you, Anna, and it turned out very well because you had a lot to say on this, and really appreciate hearing that. Anna, tell the world about yourself.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, I'm Anavoir. I stream on Twitch. Follow me if you want to hear me go on more about porn research and and emotional abuse, probably, and my regular on dark triad personalities. Talk about that a lot. Okay, well, thank you for having me on.
Porn research, you say? Hitting that follow
Yes.
button now. Okay. All right. Next, we'll go to Toasty. Toasty, again, a brand new individual. We're always looking for new people to be a part of this community. Thank you for coming through. One of a part of Doobie's community. So we are happy to be grab people from that area. We're so excited to be a part of all this. So Toasty, tell the world about yourself.
Hi, I'm Toasty. Thank you so much for having me. I really enjoyed it. Even if I didn't have too much to say at times, I like to try and wait until I think of something that I really want to say before I say it. But yeah, I don't really have too much to follow. I guess you could just add me on Discord, Toasty number 3155. And also buy from Missy's shop. It's pedalsandtwigsstationery.com. She packaged a whole thing for me. She threw a bunch of extra free stuff in there for me. I love her. You should check it out. It's super cute.
All right. Last, but absolutely not least, one of my favorite people in the whole world. I'm not shy about this. If you don't know, then you are absolutely new to this community. That's my special friend, Joe TheSillySerious. Joe, who I love just so much, right? Great person in my life, great person in our community, and a fantastic streamer. Everyone gotta go check her out. She is building an amazing Twitch channel, right? She is like taking this platform by storm, right? And she already did that to YouTube. Look, I'm gonna put this command in chat: !Joe, right? That's both her YouTube and her Twitch. Check out both, right? Follow her on Twitch, subscribe to her on YouTube, right? Oh, also give her money on Twitch. That might be a good idea. But subscribe to her on YouTube. She has a video there, right? That exploded like tens of thousands of views, right? Just overnight, just out of nowhere, right? Because of the quality that she brings, right? Because of her level of analysis, right? In which you've seen a little bit of that just now. So if you were impressed by this woman, right? Now's your time. This is your call to action. Go subscribe to her on YouTube. Follow her on Twitch, right? And yes, be a subscriber. Donate. So keep her around, right? This level of analysis, this level of genius, it doesn't come for free, right? You got to pay for that. All right, Joe, please.
Thank you. Thank you guys. I had a lot of fun. I don't even know if I fully agree with everything that I said, but I had a great time saying it. And I've had a really fun time on the panel. And yeah, come and follow me on Twitch. That would be good. I occasionally stream. I'm not consistent, but I try to be consistent in quality. So when I do stream, I try to make it a good stream. And yeah, I'm leaving this panel now to go and finish my YouTube video script for my next video, and I'm going to film it over the weekend. And the topic is going to be philosophical analysis of lying, and the character that I will be analyzing it from the perspective of is obviously the cool girl sociopath, so your Gone Girl type character. So I'll be filming that this weekend. Hopefully editing will only take about a week, so get subbed now so you're ready for it when it comes up. But thank you so much.
Okay. Promises on that one, right? Thank you, Joe, for that. Just calling my friend out a little bit. Thank you, Joe, for that. I'm looking forward to it. You guys, like her first video on bimbo ideology, right? Check that out. It was actually eye-opening. You're going to appreciate it. All right. So we will continue right now with our open walk-on panel. Anyone here is welcome to join us, but if not, that's okay. Thank you for spending your time, your energy, your knowledge, and definitely your passion. I'm like talking to you, Joe, with my community. I know they appreciate it just as much as I do. Have a good one. Bye.